You hear my sexy voice now? Is that
Yeah.
better? Good.
How about you, Dread? Where are you at? Can we hear you?
Yeah, how about it?
Yep, you're good.
Am I coming in all right? Okay. Yeah, I got me a little better lighting now. I got a little one of those little round lights that you can kind
The
of adjust.
podcasting lights, right?
Yeah. So
That's nice and fancy. Look at you
Makes
being
it-
all
yeah, it makes-
fancy.
Softer appearance.
yeah, and you can adjust whether warm or cool light and stuff like that.
Right.
Mhm.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what my adjustment is. My window. I do have a light, though.
Did you say your window?
Yeah, my window.
That's your
That's your podcast lighting.
That's right.
What do
My-
you use for podcasting? A Venetian blind.
I use the sun.
Yeah.
Niklas, how are you?
Hey.
How are you?
Hi.
Good to see you, man.
I wasn't sure I was in the right meeting actually, but
Yeah.
Oh, you're here. You're here.
You're here.
You're in the right
Good.
meeting.
good.
Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, this is an honor for us. We are really grateful to
Absolute
spend some time with you. So thanks for spending
cool.
time with us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, the pleasure's all ours.
We heard about you from Wildcard. He's a huge fan. I'm sure he'll be talking to you about how big of a fan he is of your band. And so
Yes.
it was through him that we all listened to your music. I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, we got to get Niklas on. We got to talk to him. Like, yes, okay, let's do this. So,
Cool. Thank you very much.
I want to make sure I know how to pronounce your last name. Is it Stalvind or Stalvind or
It's more like Stål.
Stolvind?
If I say it in Swedish, it's Stålvind.
Stolvind.
Yeah, so
That close?
you were right.
Good luck with that, Montag.
Stolvind. That's
Yeah.
close. The V and the W are kind of close.
Stålvind is fine. It means wind, steel wind.
Nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Excellent.
Fucking rad. man.
There you go.
Damn.
I mean, when you come in with that
Damn.
name, you got to be metal, man. What else?
Yeah,
are you
yeah.
gonna
What else are you gonna do with your life with that
Shit.
name?
Yeah.
You know?
Can't get a normal job now.
No way.
Yeah.
You're not gonna be an accountant with that name.
You'd be a pretty sick
Yeah.
meteorologist with that name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a flower
Yeah.
shop owner. You know, steel wind flowers. You know,
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
That's
Excellent.
great.
This is going to be fun. We're going to have a good time. Yeah, and we're going to talk to you about your V behind you. We definitely want to know about that as we go.
Yeah. It's an old Gibson that I'm custom built and altered to be a good live V for the Wolves show. So I'm happy to talk about that.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to do our great intro, and then we'll get right into it.
Great intro.
Oh.
Yeah, this is the best intro ever, man.
It is. It is.
All right. Okay, here we go.
What's up, you metal maniacs, horror freaks? This is Deb from Lady Beast, and you're listening to Metal and Horror Podcast. Hope you enjoy it.
I am Montag, master of illusion. What goes up must come down, but not always.
And Chop Top not here, so I'm Dreadbull.
Wildcard.
And you are watching and listening to Heavy Metal Horror. See what I tell you?
How
Nicholas?
exciting.
Doesn't that get you pumped?
Yeah, man. Yes, it's almost like a steel wind intro. You know?
is.
Don't insult the man.
No,
It
man, it's a great compliment. Tonight, kiddies, we've got a great show. We've got Niklas Stalvind from Wolf. Stalvind, Stalvind, meaning steel wind.
I love that.
That's all you
my
need to
favorite
know.
thing
That's
that
all
I've
you need to
learned
know,
so
man.
far. It's already
Uh-huh.
a great show because I learned something. I love it.
Yeah, Niklas.
Yeah. I'm
welcome
changing
to,
my name to Steelwind.
You should be, man. You should.
That's way better.
Welcome to Heavy Metal Horror, man. It is great to have you on.
Yes.
Thank you. That was the most epic intro I've ever seen on a YouTube
I
show.
told you, Dreadbull.
Yes, he is
Write
just
that
too
one
kind.
down.
We already know he's way too kind.
Yeah, the fact that he's on our show shows how kind he
And
is.
then it's complimentary. It's
Yeah,
too
right.
much.
He's going to be putting us in a bag of regrets
Not used
later
to
on.
this.
That's right. So, Nicholas, your band Wolf, we, I know Wildcard is a huge fan of your band. I know he's going to talk to you all about that. And we were just talking about your Gibson Flying V in the back. Before we get into our questions, could you tell us a little more about this wonderful axe?
Well, it's how can I say, when I started to play in Wolf, I only had a Les Paul, and that's what I recorded the first. Because when I tried different guitars, but when I found the Les Paul, the Gibson is very special. It's very different compared to Fender or a normal instrument. But I liked it, but then when I needed a second guitar after a while, and the other guys in Wolf, they insisted that I would buy a V because accept. And when I looked into it, I got kind of I should try that one. And then they had one at the record store, at the music store, and I went there. It was like I was a poor working class guy with not much money, and when I was sad, I went into the store and played that V. It always got me in a good mood, and I saved up to it, and I bought it. And so the Gibson Flying V became my first Wolf guitar. But there were things that wasn't always optimal about it for playing metal. So I think after when I recorded Legions of Bastards, I bought that V new, and then I rebuilt it. So I'm installed an Evertune system because I can't afford a guitar tech to hand me new guitars all the time. So it's great. It's great because I'm a front man. I sing and I play riffs at the same time. And the Evertune system, if you know how to set it up, it's great. I can do whatever I want live, and it will never go out of tune. And the audience don't have to see me go and get another guitar. They don't have to see me, check the tuning. And if I get too excited with adrenaline live, and I hit the strings too hard, it won't go out of tune. So it's a great system. But after using that or abusing that, I can show you what it looks like on the back here. It's
buckle rash.
There you go.
Left, and I mean, I just put this plate back. It was open, and it started to, the Evertune system started to get, really messed up. And I also kind of, getting older, getting a lot of, some aches in my hands. My day job, I work with my hands and I lift heavy stuff. So sometimes it's hard to play the guitar. So I wondered, what would it be like to try what everyone else is doing and try a modern metal guitar? I haven't done that since I was 16. So then I found this one. I'm going to get it now. It's a solar guitar made by the YouTuber and haunted guitarist Ola Englund.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
It has every thing that I have built into my Gibson, and also other stuff that I have been thinking about getting, like taller frets. These are jumbo frets. It makes it way easier to play, and I can have any gauge of strings I want. But right now I have 9.5s. The Gibson wants 10s, and sometimes when my hands hurts, it's the bendings and it's harder. This one is easier to play, and also a great thing is put glow in the dark dots, so I can see where I am on the pitch black stage. Stuff like that. I was thinking about continuing rebuilding my Gibson, but I felt like I must have another guitar like this, so if something happened to it, So now lately I've been having this one as my main guitar. It's like the Gibson, but a bit different, but the same thing. I only have a volume pot that's really easy to reach. just to pick, if I want to do a solo on the neck pickup, it's just a switch and a pop, exactly like my Gibson. So yeah, stuff like that can make life easier for the singing guitar player.
Right.
Yeah, keeping it simple, man.
Yeah, that's really that's awesome. That's a good look into like your career with guitars. I've been following you guys probably since maybe Black Wings or Evil Star. Might have been Evil Star.
Okay.
I think Evil Star was my first purchase.
Ah.
Found that at a big box store over here and almost shit myself because my friend, he had access to all kinds of like obscure stuff, and Wolf was still pretty obscure at the time over here.
Yeah.
Even though I think you guys, that was a prosthetic release, right? Or did that get
I think so,
reissued by
yes,
prosthetic?
in the US it was prosthetic.
And so it was exciting to find the stuff in a huge store, and I greedily grabbed it, and have been a fan, ever since. But I've been following like, some of the metal mags and stuff. I can remember seeing pictures with you guys and your Deans. I mean, you seems like you've had V's pretty much for the entirety of the band's career, and I love that because I too am a V man. I have way more. I have a couple other non-V shapes. Like I have an Iron Bird, but like, my Gibson in the back. That's the only. I have two Gibsons, and one was brand new, does not stay in tune whatsoever. Like the G string is never in tune, even immediately after I tune it. That one, though, I don't know how it snuck by. That one doesn't really fall out of tune too much, but yeah, so that's interesting to like learn to see what like I've only briefly heard of that tuning system and never really looked into it. And boy, I can imagine Gibsons could really benefit from that because the only other thing they have is like a string butler, that thing you put up on the headstock that's supposed to pull the strings a certain way to keep them from falling out of tune.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool, man. I still though think you should get the Wolf. You should put that Wolf logo though back on the headstock. I miss that, man.
You mean like this one? I just
yes, that's the
guy.
There you go.
I just found it in my dusty cellar. I just took it out again and had
my
it,
gosh, so gorgeous.
Oh, nice.
I haven't played it in a long while. It isn't the same quality as Gibson, but it really looks cool. It really
looks cool as fuck. Sometimes that's all that matters.
Well, at least with Vic's music,
it's all about the looks.
Looks are
Not
better
about
than the
sounds.
music, that's for sure.
I also, when we're talking about guitars and Gibsons and staying in tune, I have this one. This is an old 70s style.
Oh, nice.
And this one has a slightly smaller headstock, which means that the angle of the G string, it's not as brutal. So
it's straighter,
stays in tune really, really well. But I think this one actually is built in the custom shop.
Okay.
So it's I don't know how I was really lucky to get this guitar. It's
gorgeous.
With Gibson, I really love Gibson Flying V's. They are like magic wands to me. They're so inspirational to play. Not the easiest. It's really made for jazz and rock and blues, that sort of stuff. But if you find the right one, it's pure magic. But you have to find the right guitar because they can be very different and different from different eras. But there's something special about Gibson Flying V's, I think.
Iconic. They're iconic, and you're absolutely right. There's like magic in those guitars. That's why when I found this one, I was real excited to get my hands on it. I was like, oh yeah, and it was such a good deal. And yeah, man, that's Flying V's in general are the superior guitar shape. Just so anyone watching knows, if you're thinking about getting a guitar, the V is the superior metal guitar. Fight me.
Yeah, but actually, for me, I'm built. I'm built pretty weird. I have no upper body at all. I have really long arms, and my my right shoulder is lower than the left.
Okay.
So for me, the V is actually the most ergonomic guitar. Some people can't play them, and it's the most ergonomic sitting down. In classical position, it's the most ergonomic standing up, especially the Gibson V, that it balances so well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I have a really hard time playing normal guitars. I have this one. This is a more modern Strat. This is a Solar as well. It has a slightly smaller body. It's way more ergonomic than a Fender for me, because I'm not a very big guy. I'm only 170 centimeters tall, so I don't know how but but the V has always felt really good. Feels like an extension of my body almost. So I feel very comfortable.
That's how that's how guitars are supposed. I mean, I feel like most instruments are supposed to, if they feel like an extension, that makes everything so much easier, especially in the creative process.
You talk about
Montag. Sorry. No, go ahead, Dreadbull.
I was just going to ask. You talk about that magic when when you find the right one. Do you know it immediately when you pick up a new guitar and you start playing with it? Does it speak to you immediately and you know this is the one? Like this has got the magic to it.
Sometimes, but sometimes, usually it takes a while. Like with the red Flying V I showed you, I ordered it from Thomann in Germany, and it was the last one, I think. I was just really, really lucky to get a hold of it. And it was like, I had no expectations. At first, it came really weird with a weird setup. Took me a while to set it up my way and get used to it. So I was almost, regretting, buying it. The same with the Solar. When I got it first, it felt really odd. I had to, to do a setup that suited me and get used to it. And after a while, you feel like, wow, this is a really, really good guitar. And the Solar, you can feel that it's a guitar made for metal and nothing else. Right. So it's very easy to play metal on, and it sounds great. It sounds really, really good. And I don't know, I haven't played too many Solars. I played like a 4 or 5. I think actually this one was the worst, but I took it to a shop and they did a Plex setup where they have a machine that polish the frets in like extremely minute. It's like 1,000 of a millimeter or something, and it came out like great. So that's the guitar I recorded all the rhythm guitars and a lot of other stuff on this album, the latest album. And it saved me a lot of time because it's easy to play, always stay in tune. You never had to worry about the tuning. So when you're in the song, when you have everything going for you, you don't have to worry. And it sounds great. It has a Fender scale, and of course doesn't, intonation can be a problem with some Gibsons, depending on the tuning and string gauges. But when you have the Gibson I have with a Evertune, you don't have to worry. The intonation is perfect. But also the Solar, of course, both because of the longer scale and the Evertune system. So it's a great sounding instrument, but it's a time saver in the studio. So and that was really good because I didn't want to do too many takes. I just we worked really quick in the studio on this one because we wanted the spontaneous feel, when you're on fire. We go to the studio well rehearsed, and then you go to the studio, press record, and then you go at it.
Was Shadowland tracked live, or did you guys
no, but the bass and drums were tracked live.
Okay.
And we used my demos as a backing track for them, and they played live. And Simon produced the whole thing, is the other guitarist in Wolf, in his studio. So he was behind, the mixing console, and I was just listening. So it was, we tried to capture the live feel. A bit, the energy of the band. It's a hard balance because it's very easy when you're a perfectionist like me to get everything too perfect. You can really kill the vibe if it gets too perfect. But I think on this album we managed to keep the perfect balance, I think.
Yeah, no, it's so far. Now I'm not gonna lie and be like, oh, I've checked it out. I haven't had time yet, and we made sure to I want to talk about this later on. Don't let me forget. This is my favorite hype sticker of all time. But the singles that have been released, I have been extremely pleased with as a fan. As a long-standing fan, I'm extremely excited about this one. This is like my favorite art in a while. I love this art. I think the art came out great. The color scheme's great, but getting the in-depth and like the meat and potatoes of how this was tracked. This is one of the cooler things about having a show like this is being able to get in and hear these kind of things about, I don't know, these guys don't care about that stuff. I want to know about the tracking and all the cool studio secrets and things. So this is exciting. But Montag, I know you've got probably stuff that you want to address and talk about, and I'll just jump in here and there with I've got everything set up by my hands so I can quickly access things, and we're ready to rock. So go ahead
I've got my list of questions. So yeah, that's cool.
I'll just sit here and talk like a moron for like the entirety of the remainder of the show. And I'll just be like,
that's what I was wondering. I'm like,
this thing was like this, so, but
I'm like, we want him to like us, man. You got to like these up.
Yeah, sorry.
You might want to come back later on. You never know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll start asking our questions, and then anytime you want to chime in, Vic, because we're going to talk about studio stuff and touring and all those good things. So yeah, Niklas, I'm going to talk a little bit about your background. We'll start with those questions. So like, where did your love of music come from?
I think it was from my dad. He always sat around with a guitar, and we had lots of instruments. We had what we call a music room. It was just a room. One of the rooms in the house was just filled with instruments. And he wasn't a professional musician. He was like, sing songs and play the guitars. But if I wanted to try an instrument, he made sure he got it. And he worked overtime at his job as a tractor welder to be able to afford my first drum kit. He was very, very supportive, and my mom was supportive as well. She tried to study in the house while I was banging the drums, and we also had records. I listened a lot to my dad's records. It was the Ventures and the Shadows, a lot of that kind of stuff, the instrumental guitar surf music from the 60s, which I still love, and I can hear a lot of the Shadows in Wolf's music. Actually, I guess it's not obvious to everybody, but it's something it still inspires me, and I can hear a bit of it. So I started actually to play the drums when I was 5, but I think before that I made a drum kit of old, buckets and things from the kitchen. I was so eager to play music. And my dad brought more stuff from the kitchen and from the garage and everything I could bang on and make a homemade drum kit. Wow. And then one day he took me to a music shop and bought me my first snare drum. It was only a snare drum, but for me it was like heaven. I remember on the way back, I sat in the back seat of the car, just watching that snare drum, and it had a little red marker mark on the drum head, and I still have that drum head with that mark, and I found it at my parents' house, and it looks exactly like I remember it, because I couldn't stop staring at it. I was so happy. And then I got a cymbal, so my drum kit was a snare drum and a cymbal, and the stand for the cymbal was something from his workshop or something. It wasn't a real. And eventually he got me a real drum kit. And of course there was other instruments around the house. And although none in my family has ever been a professional musician, but there was a lot of support and a lot of love for music. So it really came from my very, very, as far as I can remember in my life, when you start to get a memory, like when you're 4 or 5, I always remember the music around.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's funny. It seems like, the vast majority of guests that we ask this question of, it seems like it normally comes from their parents somehow. Either their parents were musicians, or they really supported them. And, it seems, you think about heavy metal, you think, oh, it's kids rebelling against their parents. That's why they get into metal. But, every time we ask this question, it's almost inevitably comes back that it was supportive parents that got them into it, and it really flies against the sort of general, I think, narrative that people, or the stereotype that people think of.
That's the package you're buying into. You're buying into the idea of rebellion.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But man, it just doesn't hold up.
Yeah. Well, like you, Niklas, my first drum was a coffee can with some popcorn in the bottom. And I used like spoons to make a snare sound that my dad had made for me. And I remember then, like, he actually like whittled a pair of drumsticks for me.
Wow.
I remember that. And then I too started with a snare drum. I was about 10, I think, is when they
Oh,
introduced
cool.
music in our school. So I had a Premier Chrome snare, and it came with a little tiny like set of chimes,
Yeah.
and that's what I had for about 5 years or 6 years or so. Just played that, and then I finally got my first kit when I was a teenager. But yeah, no, that's awesome to hear that.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
that's very cool. So speaking of the attraction to metal, what was it that you like so much about metal as a genre?
Oh, I remember, I heard about heavy metal because every adult in school warned about it. And they even warned about it in TV.
There
And
you
Sweden
go.
was it was almost like a satanic panic light in Sweden.
Mm.
So I've heard about metal, and I know, no, that music is not for me, because I've heard that it's really, really bad and it can mess you up. But one day in the schoolyard, I heard one of the cool guys, with a jeans vest with a lot of patches on. He had one of those tiny mono tape recorder you can hold in a handle. And there was a guitar riff coming out of that speaker that sounded like, and I was like,
Yep.
what's that? What's that? It was like, I never heard anything like it. I think that might have been the first time I've heard distorted guitar.
Was that Number of the Beast?
It sounds like Number
Yeah.
of
Is
the
that what
Beast.
you just played?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we
It was
go.
the Number of the Beast, and I remember thinking it's the same melody as "Oh When the Saints."
Mhm.
Oh, when the Saints.
Yes.
and I was like, but it sounded so different. And I found out that in my class there was a guy. He didn't look like a hard rock metal guy at all, but he had all the Iron Maiden albums. I think it was up to the latest one then was Power Slave. He had them all. I went to his house. I taped them. I wanted a record for Christmas, and that Christmas, my parents gave me Live After Death, which had just
Oh, wow.
come out.
Nice.
Such
And
a
I
good
listened
album.
so much to it that it eventually, the sound wore off. So I was, of course, Maiden was my introduction into metal music, and it was my absolute favorite band through my whole youth. And it's still one of my favorite bands, although I don't listen to Maiden so often, because I've heard them a million times. But just a couple of weeks ago, I revisited the first two Iron Maiden records, with the first self-titled and then Killers with Paul Diano on vocals.
Mm.
And I was like, it's still as good as I remember. I just love that music. But of course, many other bands followed. Bark at the Moon was one of my favorite records, still is. The songwriting on that one is just insanely good, and a lot of Accept records. I came from a working class background. We didn't have a lot of money. I couldn't afford to buy records, but I could afford to buy cassette tapes. So I went to all my friends that had the vinyls, and I taped my favorites albums, and I listened to it 24/7. So yeah, it was like, well, I guess it's the same for all of you. When you're in a certain age and you discover your music, and it becomes a part of you, and it becomes a part of your identity. And when I heard Maiden, it was like I loved guitar music. I loved the Ventures and the Shadows, and that's what I listened to. I never listened to the pop music on the radio, but when I discovered Maiden, it was like I found the music I had been looking for all my life, but I didn't know I was looking even. It was the same. It was the harmony guitars. It was the harmony guitars over the E, C, and D chords background. It was the vocals, the high pitched, very powerful vocals. I never heard anyone sing like that before. It was like all of it, the whole package, and the artwork. The artwork of the albums had a huge impact on me as well. And I was one of those kids who was always drawing monsters. So
Nice.
it was the whole thing. And that thing with a classic, with a painted artwork, has been something that Wolf has, continued with that tradition. And we also we have the same artist. His name is Thomas Holm. He's done most of he did the Black Wings was the first he did, and then he did everyone except Evil Star, because we had a photo there. But I like it when it's like it's a mysterious thing. It's a piece of art, and it continues. You can see that the band has the same artist, the same style, that kind of thing. And I guess that's came from Iron Maiden as well.
Yeah, Derek Riggs. That's important.
Yeah.
I think that's great. That's consistency, and it's subtle consistency in terms of like when you use the same artist for every, you know, record and such. I like that kind of stuff. I think that's as a fan, I think that's very appealing that you continue along.
Oh yeah, Dreadbull and I used to just pore over the Maiden covers, you know, like to look at them, all the details, and just like, you know, especially on an album as complex the cover as Somewhere in Time, where there's all the little like references to like other Maiden albums and songs on the artwork, you know.
Really that's cool. What you did. You sit in your bedroom floor, you put the album on, and you stare at the album cover.
That's what's appealing. That's what's appealing about vinyl. You know, is it's big. You can hold it. And you hold it while you listen to it. Unless you're not listening to it, unless it's just background music, people do that too. But I like to sit down and be like, you know, and clam up and you know, pour over the details of that, or pour over the liner notes and such. That's the way that that media was meant to be taken in, is with your full attention. You sit down you with headphones or in front of your speakers, you hold the cover. You take it in, you read the liner notes. Nobody really does that anymore, I don't think, but maybe it's a thing coming back. But I don't know. That's the way it's meant to be taken in. It's not just you know, CDs kind of ruined. Like, you got to physically get up and turn a record over. It makes you appreciate the music more. Sometimes I just listen to side A like 5 times. I'm just too lazy to flip it, but it gets me like really into deep cuts and such. So I'm happy to see that, like, you know, with you guys continuing on, you know, the vinyl format as well. Which leads me to a question, just as a fan. Unfortunately, I'm always late to the game. So picking up Wolf records on vinyl, unless you're there, you know, when they drop, you could find yourself in a bind. It took me forever to get the Black Flame, which is a Desert Island record for me. And I don't shut up to it about these guys. I talk about it. I think it's probably every show, I think I bring it up. It's one of my favorite all-time records of all times. I was fortunate to finally snag a copy of that. I think it's important for me to have all of my Desert Island records on vinyl. It's a weird quest I've set myself up for, but I would like to have like Evil Star and Black Wings and such. And those ones are difficult to find. Is there any pressings in the future? Maybe will those see the light of day again on that format? Because I know you can find them, but it's tough.
Yeah, I know, and that's the reason we are trying to get the rights to re-release those albums. But there will be, you know, a lawyer involved and a lot of money to get the rights to do it, and it's a bit weird because that record label doesn't really exist anymore. So someone has all the rights to the masters. But we have been talking about it for years, and I think after these records, I think we have to do it, and it makes me sad that people had to pay so much money for the, you know, like a copy of the first Wolf album, and they were very limited as well. I think there was only 500 vinyls of all the first Wolf records. And then after a while, it started to get more, you know, different colors and such. So it's more copies now, but. Someone did a re-release of Revenus a couple of years ago, actually. So that one I think you should be able to get. An Evil Star, I don't think it was at least a couple of years ago, it wasn't too difficult to buy it, but I'm not sure now anymore.
I looked recently and it was rough. Those price tags were rough. I mean, good for somebody, you know, paying for their kid to go to college, or maybe they just want pizza for a year. I don't know, but you know, it's those prices are pretty high right now. So I mean, good on you. I feel cool if something I've made sells for like a stupid amount of money. I feel bad for anyone trying to buy it, but I always feel good about it.
I'm really happy that someone makes a lot of money on the Wolf for you.
That's always the thing too. I couldn't sell this for $8. It's going for $30 now. What the hell, man? So as a young musician, I want to steal this one, Montag. I'm going to throw this one in there. I'm sure it was part of the thing. Can you remember any of your earlier projects? And of course, I want to touch on the whole, like, I know that for a long time people thought you were in a black metal band, and you've recently talked about how you didn't know you were in a black metal band. I
No.
love that one. I would love to elaborate on that, but I'm also curious though about, just early bands prior to Wolf. Did you have any bands prior to Wolf?
Not any band that was any significant. The first band we had, we were a trio in school. I was a drummer, and we had a guitar player and a bass player. No singer, of course, so it was all instrumental rock music. We didn't have a distortion pedal. We didn't know how to get the hard rock sound, so we played with a clean sound. And the band was called Chives. Like chives.
Nice.
I don't know. Someone looked it up in a dictionary or something. We were like 12. And then I got an offer to be in a band with older guys, and they could even play the guitars. One of them was really good, and now we had distortion, stuff like that. We had a bass player who couldn't play, so we had to show him what frets, to pick at the right time, because he had no knowledge of the neck of the bass. He didn't even get how. So
we've all worked with somebody like that.
but it was really cool. So that was my second band, and I think that was my first show. We had a show. One of the band members was a member in the church of a church. So there was like a youth night, and we played at that church. And we got all my friends, my cool hard rock friends from school to attend to the church. And you would think that the church ladies and the pastor, he would be happy. All these kids, they can come here and hear about Jesus and get saved. But of course, they were pissed off.
So loud
in our nice church, and they were sitting on the bench, and there was cans of soda left after them. It was terrible. So yeah. So that was the first show, and I was
That's
so
fantastic.
nervous.
That's like the quintessential story. It was so loud, and all the old folks were shaking their fists.
That's like one of the best
stories.
stories we've ever had on the
And
show.
it was so
Fantastic.
innocent too. That's the best part. It was so
Yeah.
innocent.
Yeah.
It's like they left soda cans behind. It wasn't like
Yeah.
beer and joints
not
and
like-
heroin needles.
Yeah,
Like
no
we're
goats
being
being
good kids.
sacrificed on the altar.
Love
no,
it. That's good. That's a beautiful story, man.
They had
I
a soda
love that.
can. Oh,
I
that's
love
awesome.
that.
So
God, God hates
did
cans.
soda? I mean,
Soda.
yeah, but soda's bad for you. So
It's the
I get it.
devil's juice.
Yeah. So I mean, after these bands, it was Wolf for you then. After these kind
I
of
was in a short while. I was a drummer in. Do you know the Christian band Narnia?
Oh, were you really?
I was his drummer for a while. Because
Damn.
he needed a drummer, and I could still play the drums pretty well. I have to really, practice.
Yeah.
So I did that, but I was really, by then, when I was 16, I switched to guitars, and that's what I wanted to be, a guitar player. So after a while, it felt like, no, this isn't me,
Yeah.
And then I quit, and he reformed the band, and it became Narnia.
Oh, I
But
thought
that
he was going to
cool.
take it a different direction, like make it like a satanic band. Like the Christian thing
Yeah.
didn't work.
No, that was
Let's go the
Vengeance.
other end. Like
Only Vengeance did that. Vengeance Rising did that.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, I was after that it was Wolf. I was in a weird place in my life for a couple of years where I really didn't play metal. I wasn't I was in a really weird place, but and then I didn't listen to metal, didn't listen to it at all. And I think that's why when I came back, when I was like in my 20s, early 20s, that's why it's all felt so fresh again. Because now we are in the 90s, and everybody, had ditched all the classic metal stuff. No one wanted to listen to that. It was grunge and all of that stuff. And for me, when I revisited Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and except for a long time, had a long break, it was like, it felt like yesterday, and I want to play this music because this is time. I don't care what people think. In the 90s, you were kind of laughed at if you came to a
Right.
party and put on Number of the Beast record or something. But I didn't care, and eventually I found another guy who didn't care as well, and that was the bass player of Wolf, and he was really an original weirdo. He was a weirdo. He was very strange guy. I think we were very different. People thought that of me too. That's why I couldn't find anyone to play with. But he was as well. But we were also very, very different. But we could, you know, we had the music in common and the passion for metal. And I was more of the musician type, and he was really not. He could almost play the bass guitar. He didn't know any musical theory. He came from, I mean, his dad couldn't sing like Old MacDonald had a farm. He couldn't sing it. He was like, if he tried, it's like, whoa, whoa. His wife would go, stop it, it sounds terrible. You're scaring the kids. That was his background. And he didn't have the support as I did. So, but he was so stubborn. He really wanted to play metal, and it was really good for me to collaborate with someone that wasn't a musician guy, because I had a lot of older musician friends that I looked up to and tried to learn, and I tried to study some music theory. He was the opposite, but he had a talent for making really cool riffs, and I think one of the reasons was that he didn't know how to do it the right way.
Yes,
so he listened
I can attest to that.
Yeah, he listened to metal and he just came up with his own riffs. And a lot of the early Wolf songs were based on his riffs. And when I heard one of his, cool riffs, this is really cool. And took me immediately, I got, a song ID and a way to structure everything. So it was a great collaboration. And after a while, we found a drummer who also wanted to play this music. And that was the first drummer on the first Wolf record. He was an old friend of actually both of us, but in different periods of our lives. And he had also he had rediscovered his passion for Iron Maiden and all of that stuff that we grew up with. And so it was like the three of us in a old bomb shelter in a rehearsal. It was in a basement somewhere in a building. And it felt like it was the three of us against the world. We was just enjoying making this music, but no one at that point in time in Sweden wanted to hear it. And it was almost like people were mocking us. We sent the demos to music magazines, and we thought, this is going to be really cool because we think that it was good songs. But it was like almost, laughed at. It was a joke. And we released the first record. We got some people really loved it, and
it's great. It's a stellar record.
And some people were still like were mocking us. But then we released the second album, Black Wings, and by that, when that record hit the market, it was like, try to mock us now, you fucking idiots.
Yeah, right, man.
So by that time, people had, I guess, tired a bit of the grunge and the hardcore and everything and new metal. And when they heard a band like Wolf, they recognized, something of their youth, I guess, and they rediscovered classic heavy metal. And then we just continued doing it, and eventually it became cool again.
Yeah, right. I mean, especially like the traditional metal movement. Like I feel like you guys were, the new wave of traditional metal. You're one of the bands that I personally think of in that whole thing. I mean, like you guys were, I don't know. So I was part of the new wave of thrash. So I was in with, all those US bands like Bonded by Blood and Warbringer and whatnot. But there was always like Violator from South America that had been, that predates the new wave of thrash's movement by several years. So like, I think a Wolf in that position, because it was like, then Enforcer happened. And then that sound, which you guys have always sounded different to me than, traditional, just new wave of traditional metal bands. But I feel like you guys were predating that movement. So you guys are like one of the reasons I feel like that made it cool again. I don't know if Olaf's ever been like, they were an influence on me, but I mean, like, I would think that, your proximity to Enforcer, that you guys did have to have some kind of influence on that boy and his making the music. So I mean, I feel like, yeah, you guys were definitely forerunners with that whole rebirth of just traditional heavy metal, like, the Judas Priest and the Iron Maiden type sound.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a Swedish music TV show where they brought up the old Wolf records and everything, and even if the traditional new wave of traditional metal bands, the younger generation, a lot younger than Wolf, they try sometimes. I think they're trying to really sound like they weren't there in the 80s. I was.
Right.
They tried to relive it, try to sound like that, produce the albums to sound like that.
Right.
And we've never done that. And I don't think that they think, at least they would never admit that Wolf had been an influence. They say that, the old British band Wolf.
Right.
Yeah, they are cool. They are the real Wolf. And the obscurer British new wave of British heavy metal band, the better. But it's no question that Wolf, our Wolf, had paved the way for that whole wave. No matter if they at least the kids saw that that's what they discovered with Wolf. You can play this music. You actually can do it, because before we did it, it was quite unthinkable. It's hard to really, if you weren't around in the 90s, you can't really understand how unthinkable it was to really do this.
Right. Yeah. So with with the release of a new record coming out of the pandemic, I know you guys did the live stream with where I got the pleasure of seeing Sorcerer, whom we've had the pleasure of interviewing a few times. Which that was a great show. I loved that show personally. My wife and I watched it. It was super convenient for us because we were in our living room with a clean bathroom, and beer was a lot cheaper in my house than going to a live show. But now that things seem to slowly and surely be evening out, are there tour plans?
Yeah, we had tours lined up for the release of this album. One of the tours were actually continuing doing the tour that was aborted because of the pandemic. But then that was with Grand Magus, another Swedish band, one of my favorite Swedish bands. And it got canceled due to everything being so uncertain around COVID a couple of months ago. And also with another tour planned, and that was perfectly lined up for the release of this album. And it was also canceled some months ago. And since then, we have only done one live show when it started to open up again. And that was actually with Sorcerer as well. And now we are looking to book new tours. There's nothing that has been written on paper, that nothing has been settled yet. It's been really, really hard for some reason. And I guess a lot of promoters are still a bit, scared to take the risk. So it's been tough, but we have plans, and we have a new booking agency that we have been working with now for only a couple of years. But the COVID thing is still making everything very difficult. All the festivals are lagging 2 years behind, so we will play live again as much as we possibly can.
Right.
I think we have released this one of our absolute strongest albums in our career, so it would really, really suck not to get this album out live.
Right.
So that is the plan, but I can't tell you more right now, unfortunately.
It's been a couple hard years with everybody. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like tours start, they get canceled, because of COVID. And there are some bands who've done smaller shows, or they do an occasional festival, but it's got to be really frustrating. Someone who wants to make more of a living doing, doing what you love, to not be able to get out and play, as much as you want to.
Yeah, now we have a new lineup with the rhythm section, and I think the band sounds better than ever live. I mean, at the first rehearsal, it was crazy good sounding for me. I remember when we started, like, we weren't really good musicians in that bomb shelter, but we really rehearsed and got better. I've seen the evolution of Wolf, and now at the first rehearsal with these guys that have also like rehearsed with other bands when they grew up. It sounded so solid. It was unbelievable. So now I see even more live potential for Wolf. And it's so fun to play together with these four guys that we are now. The new, I mean, I've enjoyed every lineup, and every lineup it's a part of Wolf history, and it's been great. But right now I'm really enjoying playing with Simon and Johan and Pontus. They are amazing musicians. I feel like for the first time in the Wolf's career, I'm not the musician in the band anymore. I have to practice more to just, you know, come up to their standard of, you know, musicianship.
Yeah.
So and that's great. I haven't experienced that since I played actually with the guy from Narnia. He was 16 and already was like fucking virtuoso on the guitar, and that was it's very, very helpful to play with people that are much better than you are. You really can grow doing
Totally
that.
concur. Yeah, absolutely agree with that.
Now with the other guys in Wolf, it's just so much fun, and it's so easy, you know. That's why we didn't have to do too many takes in the studio, because we came there well rehearsed, but not too well rehearsed, and just you know, went at it like 3-4 takes per song, and I think we nailed it on the third. And then we, you know, nowadays you can take the best parts of, you know, you can record everything. We don't record on tape anymore, so it's, but the hard part now is not getting it too perfect, but it's great. So it's great working in the studio with musicians like that, and it will be even better, you know, playing live, which we have done only a couple of times actually. But it's a lot of fun with these guys.
To my knowledge, you guys have only played the States twice. Unfortunately, was it 3 times?
Yeah,
I know Prague Power and BWBK. What was the third appearance?
It was a Massachusetts hardcore and metal festival.
Oh my gosh! Well, who do I have to hold? I need to hold somebody hostage and get you over here again. You're a bucket list band for me. I had the opportunity to catch that BWBK, but I was still kind of new to everything.
Okay,
I think I went to the pre-show fest, and I didn't. I think that was the year, but it might have been the one before it, because there was only 3 BWBKs before the fest moved out of Cleveland, which is where we're all from.
Cool. Yeah,
we're all from the Cleveland area. Well, not technically Cleveland, but that's, no one says like we're from Amherst. No one knows where that is. We say Cleveland. We're all right there. But that's, you guys are a bucket list band, so we need to get you back to. I know it's easier said than done. It's get a hold of promoters and
you could stay at Wildcard's house. You could totally stay
we have all the amenities.
Open door policy over there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember that show in Cleveland. It was great. We played Evil Star for the first time ever, and it was months before we even recorded it, and I didn't have the vocals. Tried to write the vocals on the plane, and ended up with like, you know, have you ever seen The Muppet Show with the Swedish Chef? That was me on that song.
Yes. So, that's awesome.
I had no clue what I was singing at all. It was just pure mumbo jumbo, because I forgot everything. You know, I don't know how I could be so stupid to think that I could, you know, just made up, you know, lyrics on the spot, you know, or remember something I wrote the day before on the plane. But it was a lot of fun. I also remember, you know, the Merciful Fate guitarists. They had a band called, I don't remember the name of the band now, but they were there. And
Force of Evil.
Yeah. Merciful Fate, of course, been a huge influence on Wolf. So I was standing there and meeting those guys for the first time, and standing and asking them a lot of questions, you know, about the riff, how they write riffs and how they think about songwriting and stuff. And I was like in heaven. I got them to sign one of my each arm, you know. And then came a Wolf fan, tapped me on the shoulder and wanted to sign something. And I was like, this is weird, you know. I'm standing here with 2 gods, and you want my autograph, you know. And it was a comical situation. We, you know, had a laugh, all 3 of us. But yeah, and that was cool. I had so many great memories from that festival.
That
Yeah,
was one of the
that was-
things I was going to ask you about, some of your heroes who you had met, and that's a great story. Because we're all fans of someone, no matter what level we're at. We all love someone else, So, are there any other of your heroes, perhaps, that you've met, and what was that experience like for you?
Oh yeah, I can tell you about the funniest experience. It was only because I only met my heroes when I was an adult and a musician myself. So I've never been, starstruck meeting people. But there was one weird moment where we were touring with one of my childhood heroes, Blackie Lawless and Wasp.
Oh,
And he is a different. He is Blackie is Blackie. So it was a weird, seeing him walking around like tall as a giant, but he never looked anyone in the eye. One time he stood next to me and had a piss, at the pissoir, and it was like he wasn't even noticing that it was anyone else there. He was in his own word all the time. But on the last date, I happened to hear when they sound checked he had the backing vocals on backing tracks. So they had it in the PA really loud. It was only Blackie's voice, and I love Blackie's voice. It's pure magic for me. It's like a fist in the heart, And I was so, I had goosebumps just hearing his vocals with no background, no guitars, nothing. It was pure magic for me. I was freezing in a corridor and just, listening to this. And all of a sudden, Blackie came out from a door, approaching me in the corridor, and it was only me and him there. And it was the last night, so I said to myself, "It's now or never. This is my chance." So I walked up to him and grabbed his hand and shook his hand and, "Hello, I'm Nick from the Wolf, and just want to tell you blah blah blah." And it as it turns out, Wasp was my first concert experience. They were the support band of Iron Maiden on the Somewhere on tour, and it was my first big concert experience when I was like 14 years old, and it was so, I can't even describe how deeply it impacted me. It was like dying and going to heaven and meeting God. So I told, and he was like, yeah, because then he started to talk to me like a normal person, and that was the first time he ever talked to anyone on that tour. And he said, yeah, and he started to remember, and I could see like, yeah, it was 1986, right? Yeah, and I was explaining that this was my first concert experience when I was 14 years old, and as I started to talk about these things, I turned into that Niklas, 14-year-old metal fan who just discovered. So I got so excited, so I don't even know what I said, and all of a sudden I just saw Blackie. I saw the back of Blackie Lawless disappearing in a distance, and I was standing there like, and my legs were shaking, and I was like, what the fuck happened? And probably he was like, I guess he was like, oh no, it's happening again. So he just turned his back and walked, but I don't even remember it. So I got back to our dressing room, like, and this was, everybody talked about how no one got even eye contact with Blackie. No one, we were all big Wasp fans, and it would be cool if we just said hi sometimes. And we had discussed, it was a topic on the tour. So I came back to the dressing room. I have met Blackie Lawless, and my knees were shaking. And Andy, the bass player, "Oh, Nick, are you starstruck?" And I was like, "No." Must be it's the first time, and it's the first and only time. So that was I met a lot of my childhood heroes and a lot of my influence. I've met a lot of those people now, and it's great every time if you have a good meeting. And it turns out that all people, most of them are really, really down to earth guys and just great guys. But meeting like that experience was completely different.
Thank God that didn't happen
Yeah.
when you were taking a piss next to each other. That would have been super
Yeah.
awkward.
Yeah, that had
Would've been a
been
different
even
story.
more awkward, I think. I'm glad I didn't tell him the story about the first concert at that, moment.
Right.
So at least I have that.
Oh, that's great. That's
Oh
great.
man, that is
Well,
fantastic.
since we're talking about touring, I've got some other questions I'd like to ask
Yeah,
about
we're running out of time now, I see, because
what
I have
the-
another interview.
what time how much time do you have?
None.
None.
Oh,
no. we're
Oh,
fine.
okay. Well,
Okay.
before we let you go,
Yeah.
well, first we want to thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you
for-
so much.
for being here. We weren't sure how much time you had. We want to thank you for showing up and spending this time with us. We really appreciate it. Would it be too much to ask for you to do a bumper for us? This is Niklas from Wolf, and you are watching Heavy Metal Horror. Would that be okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Now it got me Ingwe hairdo.
There you go.
Hey there, this is Niklas from Wolf, and you're watching Heavy Metal Horror Show.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
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 You're welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you come back on.
Yeah, I would love to come back because I realized I have lots of stories.
Yes, we want to hear them.
Great stories.
We want
We
them
want to
all,
hear them
yeah.
all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yes, we'll be in touch through, and we'll set up another time for you to come back on if that's okay
Absolutely,
with
we
you.
can do a part 2 if you like.
Yeah, part 2,
Yeah,
3,
that'd be
4,
great.
however much time you want to give us, we'll take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, all right.
All right, so thank you very much, Nick. We'll get our outro and we'll get out of here. Hey, you can find Heavy Metal Horror on unsaneradio.com. Listen to full episodes or download to your device. You can find us on Facebook, Heavy Metal Horror Podcast. On Instagram, look for Montag Lewis, one word. Our YouTube page, which is where you're at, Heavy Metal Horror Podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And we're also on Roku, Hotel Metal Jam. If you know someone who'd like us, tell them about us. This has been Montag, Master of Illusion.
Dreadbull.
Wildcard.
Okay, Nick, you can join us. Bring up the horns. And
Oh,
you've
yeah.
been watching
Heavy metal.
Metal.
That was perfect.
That was
That was
great.
great.
The best one ever.
The more out of sync we are, the better it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Doug Helvering, and you have been listening to Heavy Metal Horror, the best podcast that you've never heard before.